to Carson Price from the historic Wall Center. Patrick Johnston covers the Canucks for the Province and Post Media, and you're laughing already. Happy New Year. So funny.
Hello.
Would you like to share with the class, please?
Just thinking about everything we were talking about before we showed up here.
Do you think Patrick Allvin was trying to send a message yesterday, Peach?
Last week when I talked to him, it is very clear. Yes, I mean this is what I asked Patrick Allvin, or when was it? 10 days ago?
Yeah,
I can't even remember. Time stands still. But yes, I literally put to him. I said, will you need to make a trade?" And he said. And essentially the same thing he said yesterday was, if I may have to.
Do you think anyone in this organization is going to be able to reach Elias Pettersson between now and the deadline, or now and this summer?
I don't know. I mean, he's a different cat, and I think we know that. And if they haven't figured that out by now, he is what he is, and certainly, Allvin, I would say the one thing that's changed is Allvin has now spelled it out. He said there is a preparation issue and a focus issue and all this, or blah, 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 right? And which goes back to, the very day he almost showed up.
And a maturity issue, too, right?
Maturity, yeah. And these are all messages that, from almost day one, talking about what the sort of mentality here is, what else is possible, what else can you do? And obviously Quinn Hughes heeded that message, and I think to a degree Brock Boeser heeded that message. And clearly, the frustration level is there with Pettersson, and that's certainly something I've been hearing for a while now. Now they're actually saying it out loud. That your talent took you a long way, and I've said this. I know I've said this before here. Your talent took you a long way. Now it can take you further, but you need to do other things to prime yourself better, to prepare yourself better. And whether that's a message that the player himself is buying or taking, I guess we'll find out.
Yeah, we're going to have to wait a few games at least to find out, though. He's not around right now, and neither is Quinn Hughes. Look, when JT was on his leave of absence, Elias Pettersson did show some spark and actually played his best hockey. And I'm not trying to get this back to pitting the two of them together, but now Pettersson's out. It's been a little too quiet around JT Miller.
Oh.
With both Quinn and Petey out of the lineup right here, right now, do you look at Miller and say, it's go time?
Well, I was talking to someone about this the other day. Did we actually see him do anything? Is he doing anything? I mean, against Seattle, he made a couple nice passes. But there's none of those sort of taking the bull by the horns, dominating shifts the way we've seen him. The guy picking up the puck at his own end of the ice and carrying it up and making the zone entry happen. We've just not seen that. And certainly not in the power. I mean, I think what's most astonishing for me, Jeff, is what we've not seen on the power play, right? We haven't seen him really load up. I mean, maybe they're not trying for it, but we haven't seen him really load up for that shot off the wing that he likes to do when he comes running in down the left. They are trying a few different orientations, but on the whole, there's usually some kind of effort from him to get off a big shot on the power play, and we haven't seen that. And absolutely, the time is now. If ever there was a time for him to get out of a funk, was it October 26th? I know that's your stat, but October 26th.
The last time he scored on a goalie. Yeah,
last time he scored on a goalie. Yep. Yes, he missed a bunch of games, but that's still a long time. That's even if you take the 10 games away, that's more than a month. That's not good.
No, in real time, it's 9 games without a goal. There have been some points along the way, but so let's just bring this back to Pettersson then for a sec, because we won't know ultimately the impact that it's going to have on him. But JT challenged him. There was that little clash they had at practice. Rick talking at the podium, Petey, kind of talked about how Edmonton's got these guys that break games, and the Canucks don't. And now Patrick Allvin, it's climbing the chain here. And so to Matt's point, do we expect that this is going to have any on-ice impact for this player?
I mean, I think they're at the end of the rope. I think the way the discussion is happening, now that you're broadcasting to the agents in public, to the fans in public,
to potential suitors in public as well.
Well, that's the part about it that perhaps it's an impossible situation, but I think a lot about that you are talking publicly about your frustration with the player. You go to another team, say, hey, are you interested? And they're, well, if he's a player that you're talking about in public, what are we getting here? And that's not ideal. It is a difficult spot they've put themselves in. I have no doubt that their preference is to have the player starring for them. The preference is clearly, I don't think, to trade the player. They want him to perform. They signed him to the contract. They kept him last year. They signed him to a long-term deal, which is filled with a no movement clause. Yes, it's not on right now, but they made the commitment to saying, we want this player here. They would rather him to become the player they want him to be. So will it make a difference? I don't know. At this point, given everything, I don't know. But they certainly believe this is their last. This seems like the last effort to make that happen.
Patrick, if we get back into our time machine to November 17th, some of us were regaling at the Grey Cup. You guys were next door covering the Canucks loss to the then lowly Nashville Predators, and JT Miller got his benching in the third period, which immediately preceded, I'm sure it wasn't coincidental, the 10-game leave of absence. In retrospect, because that was a public shaming of JT, and as we know, he's a really proud guy, right? Like really, to have to face the media after being benched, I can't imagine there's a worse day in JT's world.
Yeah.
Pettersson was never sort of publicly benched and shamed in the same way. Do you think if Tocchet plays that card, we've quelled some of this storm?
Possibly. I'm not sure it's that simple. We've seen, I've experienced some frustration with Miller, in terms of not directly to me, but I think there's been times when he's been frustrated. I mean, he, especially last season, was so good with us, right? Like generally available to talk, generally ready to answer. And there were times when Pettersson didn't. And some of that was about how the sort of media request game now works. But he was carrying a lot of the load and in terms of facing the music. And, Pettersson, I would say his record has been uneven on that. So if you're JT Miller and you're doing all these things, you see what he's not doing, or he's certainly not, at least his perception might not be that he's carrying the load. That can extend to the play. I mean, we know that the way Miller deals with his emotions obviously is the complete opposite end of the spectrum from Pettersson. We know that has been a frustration. I mean, certainly that's in many ways, I think, guiding what's frustrating management is how Pettersson sort of. I mean, he's a I don't know if introvert's the word, but he's a quieter. He's at the quieter end of the spectrum. He takes things into himself. He doesn't express them, and so the idea of benching him to say, listen, we aren't happy with how you're playing. I mean, there's a reason why Tocchet has gone that route with Miller, because he knows that Miller, or at least he believes Miller, will respond. Will Pettersson respond? I think, to me, I am perhaps surprised now that we think about it that it hasn't happened. Now, we look at sort of how he, in many ways, shut down last year after he sort of encountered his own frustrations, right? Like, he wasn't playing very well. Mentally, I don't think he had the coping mechanisms, the coping skills to deal with the sort of lack of confidence he felt in his own game. That we certainly heard that kind of frustration. When we think back, Tocchet talked a lot about the sort of the mental performance skills aspect of it all, and as Pettersson was struggling last season, suggesting maybe there's something he can do to quite literally perhaps give his head a shake. So the approach has been different. Would a benching make an impact? I don't know, but you're right. In hindsight, it's surprising perhaps that they haven't tried that.
Yeah, and just before anybody, because oftentimes fans get this confused and try to equate it to youth sports and things like that. Mm-hmm. Pro coaches will tell you their job is to find the ways to motivate the individual. So oftentimes what's good for the goose isn't good for the gander. And so it can seem inequitable, but that is by design. That is the head coach saying, I understand this guy's personality. I understand this guy's makeup. And if I push this button, it works better for him than if I push that button with the other guy. What do you think, Jeff, on the same?
Look, I would imagine every guy on that roster was pretty damn frustrated with Petey in the playoffs last year.
Yeah.
Like, for them to do what they did and get to Game 7 and get within a goal with zero production, essentially. And so, obviously, you had to keep playing him last year. You weren't going to sit him or discipline him or anything at that point. But then the hope, obviously, was that he would take this offseason, figure things out. And when he came back and the first 15 games looked so much like they did down the stretch, I could understand if I was a teammate and there was sort of no punitive action in any way against this guy. And it just kind of does feel like, they were remarkably patient with him, thinking that at some point it was all going to come together. And here we are ready to flip the calendar to 2025, and it really hasn't yet come together this season.
Especially when he's defiant in the media, right? Like, he doesn't want to take it on, especially when he makes comments like he was competitive on the salary with William Nylander. It's like, these are the sorts of things that don't necessarily land with the group writ large. So
I just quickly looked up and I found it. I remember there was an exchange in the playoffs. Jeff, actually, it's funny you mentioned that, but I found it. That we basically, Rick Tocchet it was May 15th. Rick Tocchet calling out Pettersson, saying, "Be more dynamic, and can you be better?" And Pettersson basically saying, "Yeah, I know I haven't been playing well." He says, "It's challenged me, but I always like challenges. I always like to think I can answer them." He also said he was trying. I'm trying out there. Maybe not going the best way, but I want to be a difference maker. But then we asked him, I do remember this, we asked him, why haven't you been able to make it happen? And he simply said, good question.
Yeah.
Right. And how many times have we heard Rick Tocchet say, he's got to move his feet, which obviously is code speak for he's just not playing well enough and we need more from this guy. Yes. So he gets he's got to move his feet, and JT gets basically the public shaming with 18,000 people.
Well, the one thing that I think we can absolutely put to bed after this week and these comments from Allvin, in conjunction with what he told you last week, Patrick, is that Elias is not, in fact, his worst critic. No. That is now just pablum. That is now just a line to try and make all of this go away. There is no there. Because the criticism has come in far greater measure now from people around him. And fellas, I continue to wonder if Tocchet not dismissing it as tendinitis. You say he shut down when things weren't going well for him last year, Peach. I still wonder if, Tocchet saying, no, he's not injured, guys, and then Elias detailing that knee injury in the postmortem and Tocchet dismissing it as tendinitis. I just sort of wonder if that was the straw that broke the camel's back, that he completely shut down for this organization after feeling he wasn't supported on an injury matter publicly by his head coach.
That may be possible. All I can tell you right now is that he is not injured. I have asked a couple of people, and they're like, nope, this is a healthy player. So, hold on. Sure.
You're saying he's healthy right now? Like, he didn't play the game?
Sorry.
Okay.
Until the injury. Sorry,
Whoa.
to be clear.
I thought we had a bombshell there, J-Pad.
Sorry. Until the injury, he has been healthy. This season, he has been healthy until the injury.
But Jeff said yesterday he felt this was a accumulation of things building up with Elias that have led to this week or so that he's going to miss, whatever the case may be. Those injuries are real, as you understand.
Yes. What he is currently undergoing, I'm not disputing anything that exists currently or what Jeff has said. I was saying until essentially this all happened, he'd been healthy this year. There had been
there's enough going on around this team.
Exactly. What a hell of a day to ring in the new year and send out 2024. Are you done talking about Pettersson with him? Because I would. Okay. Because lest we escape what I thought was a pretty interesting comment on Brock Boeser from the general manager.
Yeah.
And of course, I will bring you back to the summer where Patrick Allvin said, well, 40 goals, but he took his foot off the gas, thought he could have got to 50. And then yesterday he says, but I would have him in the same boat as Petey and Miller in terms of giving us more when we need more. There is more to give. Absolutely. Are we seeing Brock Boeser's last year in Vancouver? Do you think either by the deadline or just play it out and take the cap space in the summer is how they're approaching Boeser's future here?
I mean, I've wondered about this since the summer. he has been an excellent player. I think he has generally been very good for this team. I think he's been, he obviously played the best hockey of his career last year. Came through a lot to get there. And, but this summer, sitting there thinking about how do you do this? What are you facing? Even with a cap that's going up, Brock Boeser remains a right winger, right? If you are making choices on where you should be spending your money, well, the Canucks did make a choice last year by extending Elias Pettersson, who was not a surprise. Previously extending JT Miller. They if you want to use the soccer term, they focused on securing the spine of their team, right? That's where you spend your money. Wingers, Boeser is a top flight goal scorer. He has proved that. He is better as a two-way player, I think, than he gets credit for, but that is not what he's known for. This is not a Sam Reinhart type winger. So I remember I thought of it in the summer. I said, man, if push comes to shove, is he getting extended? I think I'm going with no, and I think that's still my position. I think for the sake of the sort of soul of the Canucks and the culture of the Canucks, is a guy that I think is going to be a long-standing, well-remembered Vancouver Canuck for everything that he's meant to this team. You do want to see him go on, but if you are being cutthroat and you're saying what is the future of this team, there was a reason why they took a look at Jonathan Lekkerimäki earlier this season. They want to know what the potential options may be in front of them and how soon those may arrive. And it may come sooner than expected. Lekkerimäki's got 12 goals in the minors now. Like he's improving. I'm not saying he's an immediate replacement for Brock Boeser, but there is the possibility in the future that that's the option they have to take. Yeah. So listen. I mean, Jim Rutherford was very clear on After Hours when he was asked, and he said there are two different numbers here. They have a clear position, and I don't expect they're going to waver from it very much. And so if you want to stay here, you are going to take that, and they're going to lean on that because they know how much Brock Boeser likes living here and likes being here. But you're right, Matt. That's a big cap hole that they could use on something else.
Hey, Pat, forget the broader view of a replacement for Brock Boeser. How about getting Lekkerimäki back here in the here and now? Nils Höglander's gone forever without a goal. Dakota Joshua, it's coming a long way slower, I think, than anybody had hoped or thought with him. They'll get Pettersson back in short order. It doesn't sound like it's going to be more than a handful of games, but do you bring Lekkerimäki back for another look here to try to produce some offense in the absence of Pettersson in the short term, but longer Quinn Hughes as well?
I mean, I think you said it. I mean, Höglander has been such a disappointment. Think about that missed chance he had on was it Saturday? As again, everything's blending into one.
I know.
But think about that sitter. Like, he was in front of the net. He just had to get it over the goalie. Like, he gets it over Grubauer, and that's a goal. And he whiffed. And that has been the theme of his season. I think he has been playing better lately, but playing better and scoring goals are two very different things. And similar to Elias Pettersson, they just need those. I mean, Pettersson has been, he did bury some goals, and that's good. Höglander hasn't even done that. So yeah, I think there is a case to be made that you want to see what Jonathan Lekkerimäki has and how much closer he is to being a full-time NHLer. He needs to add some strength. I mean, we saw that, right? Like that he's a slight player. He's needs to find a way not to get ragdolled. He got ragdolled at times. Certainly has the hands. We know that he's got the instincts to score. He's got the hands to score. That right now is the difference. Brock Boeser is a strong, stout man who goes to the spots where he knows the goals are going to be, and he buries them. And Jonathan Lekkerimäki, I think, is still, to a degree, going to struggle to do that. But is he closer? We're a couple months down the line from when he was here in the NHL. So, he's still a growing boy, as they say.
Yep. Yep. All right, sir. Last bit of business is the poll question, the Surrey Mitsubishi poll question. Do you think Canucks management would choose Miller over Pettersson if it comes to that?
My impression is they would like to go the other way if they had to make a choice. But one of them is tradable right now, and one of them is a lot. I mean, you could trade either. I think at the end of the day, I think the choice is that they would like, if they have to make a trade, they're sticking with Pettersson, so I'm saying no. I think my answer to my question is no. I have to stick with that, even though it feels more likely. I mean, I feel like there's Matt, you're going to like this one. I've been thinking about this. I think Patrick Allvin is trying to shift the Overton window here on what they want to do publicly with Elias Pettersson, building themselves some sort of people saying, "Oh yeah, they had no choice to do this." I do find myself wondering a little bit about that, about the rudder that's going on right now. Certainly, the fact that he started with me and I said, I asked the question, "Do you need to make a trade?" Just blank. I didn't put names on it. Mm-hmm. Name was put on it yesterday, and he said, "Yeah, maybe." So, it's certainly. I don't think. I think what he's saying is he's not. He's priming the pump to make a trade. I think that much is clear. Whether it's a room shifting trade, I still don't know, but it's certainly not out of the realm of possibility. But if they have to make a choice, are they picking Miller over Pettersson? I think the answer would be no.
You have a happy, and a merry. Thank you for all your contributions here and with Rinkwide and Jeff over 2024. Look forward to catching up in 2025.
It's always a thrill to be here, guys.
Thanks, PJ.
Next time, don't be late.